Late EU friendly. Is that a term? This is not an EU friendly stream. For it to be EU friendly, I would have to shut off the camera to preserve electricity and turn off the air conditioning and be sweating. And, we would have to shut down all modern ways of generating electricity, etc. Have I heard the new Nick Cave yet? I haven't, however. I was in a coffee shop yesterday. I forget where. And like there was a weird live cover of, I forget even what song it was, but it was a Nick Cave song. And I was like, I wonder if that's off the new thing. Or if it's some weird older release that I wasn't familiar with. But yeah. Make our teeth crooked. Yeah, we would have to we would have to arrest people for free speech, which we're working on, believe me, but we're not there yet. What else? I mean, we would have to pass a lot more rules and regulations and make it really hard to run a business. That's for sure. Did the Q&A happen? Not yet. I didn't want to do it this weekend because I just had some other stuff I was thinking about, but maybe in the next week it'll happen. Introduce communism into stream. Oh, I mean, USA's trying to do that. Don't worry about that. Germany is following in US footsteps by calling a democratically elected politician a threat to democracy. Wow, okay. I mean, it seems to work here. There's enough people who seem to believe nonsensical statements like that. Okay, so I was gonna do some Keymap stuff. Because we have a Keymap situation in our game that needs to get cleaned up. And I was like, hey, we could make the functionality generally exported. So the deal is, if you want to let people map keys and your game is kind of big, you end up with um, all sorts of modal things. Like, here's when you're in gameplay. Here's when you're in gameplay and you're a developer. Here's when you're in the editor. Um, you know, and then maybe you're handling menu through the key map. Um, maybe, I mean, we have a bunch of other stuff like, oh, if you've got the in-game profiler popped up, or what if you've got um, the GPU memory visualizer popped up? Well, there's some keystrokes for that, right? So right now, we have this thing called a key map where you could make bindings, and then we have a different one for each of those, and then there's just like some code that it marshals all that every time a keyboard event happens. Okay, and that's obviously works fine, but it's annoying because there's a ton of different files when really, in principle, you only really want like two files. Um, like one for developers and one that you ship with the game. Um, and all that. And so, what I want to do is make it so that the Keymap module provides you a way to have like a set of active key maps, right? And you know, you can activate those and deactivate those key maps individually based on what's going on in your game. And then you know, and then, well, and most important, or not most importantly, but importantly, the files can specify multiple different subcategories, right? So if I go to one of our key map files right now, here's a developer key map. Hey, there's a bunch of things, right? And that's all fine. But what if I'm in the editor? Here's a bunch of other things. That's all fine. But what if I'm in the GPU, right, thing, right? And so there's just all these files. And I don't like it. And so what I want to do is just have sections in it. So you would just have this, but you would say developer, right? And then you would say editor, and you would have some key maps, and you would say GPU, right, etc. And there'd be like 7 or 8 of these sections. And then you just want to have all these files flying around, right? Have I seen the mathematically verified kernel cell for? I've heard about it. I think it's a good idea to do stuff like that for sure. And like I said yesterday, if we can expand the ability to prove things, that's great. Make an import statement. What? Like an INI file? Yeah, like basically like that. And I mean, that's where I got that syntax from, right? And it's just, it's a very, here's the thing. Compare fucking INI files, which we had in DOS in the 1980s. Compare that to what a web bro would do today. Like you have this giant XML shitfest or like a JSON shitfest. It's very expensive to parse. And then you still have to like validate it after you parse it. It's really incredibly annoying. So now they're suggesting YAML and TOML. I mean, anything that has markup language in the acronym, I just don't want to hear about. TOML is basically INI but standardized. Okay, I don't know what that looks like. All right, but for the purposes of here, we're just going to keep it really simple. And it's a little bit interesting. So we're using this brackets for the first line just to give the file version. Now, technically, if I go to the gameplay key map, you'll even see that we bind bracket, I think. Maybe not. You can bind bracket to do something, right? So we're just going to differentiate if there's a space or not, right? And that's going to be how we determine if it's a section name or not. But before we do any of that, and this might be a short stream, I'm just chilling. I kind of want to go outside and exercise today. It's pretty hot, but you know, in a couple hours maybe. So we're just going to do some stuff here for a couple hours and see how it goes. The ML stands for minimal language. Okay, workout stream, maybe. Maybe. Okay. The new world map track is an instant classic. Well, I'm glad you liked it. Glad you liked it. How many pull-ups can I do? It varies. I cannot do very many pull-ups. I never got super serious about it, and maybe my form isn't that good, but I could do like around 5. Which is a lot more than a lot of people. I probably couldn't do 5 right now. Not bad. It doesn't seem that good. What about dips? I don't even know what dips are. Peak was 13. I feel like pull-ups are a lot easier to do when you're young. Like I have some extra BMI on me, right? That's not helping. I'm sure I could do more if I were at the weight I was at 20 years ago, you know. Dips are for triceps. Okay. So I'm going to go into the Keymap module, and then the nice thing is we'll ship this to everybody. We'll add the functionality, and then we're going to want to make an example for it. All right. Let's put this here. We're going to have a Keymap set. And we're going to document all this by writing some comments at the header file. I don't believe this comment. I don't think it's worth. Okay. So a Keymap set. We're going to want to return. We want to return pointers to keymaps to the user, and these should remain valid. So we use bucket array to allocate the keymaps. I haven't used that in a while. Storage, keymaps, bucket array. Let's look at that. Keymap, I don't know. How many, like, are you going to want more than 16? Right? And we'll always iterate those by pointer. Okay, so now we've got some keymaps. I kind of don't like that. So someone did a bunch of work on keymaps recently, and so some of the code is not very familiar to me anymore. Part of it was, so the keymap code that I originally wrote was just about reading things out of those files and using them in your game, right? But then if you want to let users change key mappings, there's some other stuff you got to do. And I considered that originally out of the scope of what I was thinking about. So someone went in and added a bunch of these things. So like knowing what the names are called and all that. Now, I don't know, maybe this ought to go in the input module at some point. Maybe it ought to go in the user program. But the point being, you know, this all got. I would probably shorten this a little bit. Anyway. I don't know why he chose to explicitly designate everything here in the struct initializer, because you don't. All right. Maybe that won't work, and then I'll regret this, and then we'll figure out why. I mean, you certainly can. Nothing wrong really with doing that. It's just when the lines are already kind of long. All right, I'm going to do also this. I'm going to just define a constant. All right. Okay. Anywho. Like, you might want to localize these and all these things. So there's reasons why maybe this ought to be in the user program, but there's also utility to providing it in the module so that people can use it without having to define their own thing. Certainly don't need more than 24 key maps. I mean, that's just the number per bucket. You can have as many key maps as you can fit in memory. It's just we allocate more buckets for them. Okay, let's make sure we didn't break anything. And let's refresh our memory. About what this example is. Okay. The example doesn't tell me what the keys are. All right. Example.keymap. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 for background colors. We have arrows. We have gamepad, shift. See how fun example programs can be? You could either write a fun little example program like this that teaches people how to use your code, or you could say, read the source, loser. Like most programmers do. Would I be down to a patch that distinguishes left and right variation of keys? Yeah, we probably should do that. I mean, we certainly should provide that ability. The reason I delayed on it was just that I had a lot to think about at the time, and I wasn't really thinking about, I mean, I didn't need to do that, right? So the question is, how do you do it in a good way where you provide the information about left and right, but you don't have to pay attention to that if you don't want to? And maybe that's just a flag on the event or something, and that's fine. In general, here's what I would say, is that the input module is literally one of the first pieces of code we ever did in modules. And we did it before we even knew how the language was going to work out and all. It was like a port from our game stuff. And it really could be completely rewritten and would be better, right? But maybe we can just like evolve it to the better thing. Okay, so that's our example. We're going to leave this example exactly like it is because in adding more functionality, I don't want to make people have to deal with more complicated things to do anything, right? So if you just want to use a single key map like this, that's fine. So part of our duty is going to be to make sure that this example still works at the end when we're done. But if you want to do the more complicated thing of adding sections, then we can do that. You like to write all your personal projects in ANSI so that it's relatively easy to bootstrap them back up after an apocalypse. Why do you think that's going to help? Because you could write a compiler? Like, are you assuming you don't have a compiler later? You only have to write an ANSI compiler instead of C++20. Well, I mean, maybe that makes sense. I don't care because I have the source code to my compiler. So that's fine. Okay. What version of C++ do I use? Well, I don't use C++ unless I have to, which when we're working on the actual compiler, then I do. And then it's like kind of like C++ 11, but minus a bunch of features that are stupid that we don't use. That's all. Okay. So we've got a key map set that we have defined. Let's delete these files so Emacs lets me get around easier. All right. Members that may be assigned and used if this key map is in a key map set. We're going to have the name enabled. All right. So we're going to have add key map to this set. Now, yeah. This is going to be, we're going to say section name. Because that's what we're going to do in the little ini file thingy, right? So we're going to say keymap is bucket array add set keymaps oh, that's not what we want. That's if you have a value. So we want find and occupy empty slot. Maybe we should make a shorter thing. And we're going to ignore the locator because we're not, I don't think, going to look this up. All right, so we just do that. Great. So here's the thing. When you do an event in one of these, we should say enabled it defaults to true here. When you process an event, we're going to want things to like go in a certain order, right? So, hey, this thing is first, so if it's enabled, if it handles the event, etc., then it doesn't pass to other people. And I guess I'm just going to do that for now by explicit ordering in the array, rather than like, oh, you put a priority number in and you sort them or something. I don't know. We're just going to do that, all right? And if we don't like that, we can modify it later. So we're going to add a keymap. We're going to say set enabled. This is going to be a trivial function, but we're just going to provide it to make people feel good. All right, we're just going to say value like you didn't need to call this function. This is weird because this is called a set, and we'll just call it enable. That's just a weird linguistic thing where in a different case it'd be fine. Let me move these down here. Okay. So we have a thing down here where we're like, I don't like the looks of this stomped thing. I don't know if I did that or someone else did that. What does override mean? I guess this is like, oh yeah, because we have, so we actually load two files for every keymap, right? There's the one that goes in source control, that's like all the custom, or all the bindings, all the standard bindings, because you want to be able to run the game and like use the editor and whatever without having to define keys. But then of course you can have your own personal set of bindings that don't get checked into source control, and that do whatever you want. So we load the base, and then we load this other thing over it, and that's what that's for. I don't, I really hate this. I'm just going to change it. I am not a fan of that. Of that format. This is a little bit better. Still don't love it. Okay. So all this is going to stay the same. What we're going to do is we're going to say okay, see here we're calling this keymap set. That's not good. We're changing our nomenclature. Instead of keymaps, mappings. Because I also did this a really long time ago, and I think the nomenclature changed. Okay. Okay. So, what do we do? Let's make sure that still compiles. Cool. Now, we're going to have handle event. Why are we saying event colon equals E? All right. Does that still compile? Did we miss an E? Oh, right. Yep. Yeah, so the input module gives us this in a certain way, and we're clearing it out. All right. So going on back here, we're going to want, let's just say what the functions are. We're going to want handle event. All right. Of course, we need the event. We're going to want to load from a file, right? We're going to want reload see, I called all these set. That's annoying. We're going to have to change that too. Okay, hold on. Before we do that, so handle event and see, here's the thing. We're loading from file only. That's annoying. You want to at least be able to allow it load from string, right? So we're going to change the name of this as well later. So we're going to have load from string that's going to return a success. That's going to be incomplete, right? And then we'll have load from file, right? What does allow duplicates do? Right. I feel like that should be on the key map itself. Let's make a list. Okay. Document changelog load from file. There's load from string. Or data. I'll just call it load from data. Okay. And then, I don't know. I feel like I was going to write something else, but I forgot. So I'm just going to replace. Oops. Okay, so there aren't very many. We just got to name all these keymap and not set. And then I'm not even using the using here. Let's just see. Okay. Probably broke something. Yep. Okay, so we'll write handle event really fast. We're just going to skip anything that's not enabled. Handle event. If handled, return true. Don't propagate to any later Keymaps. You know, I don't know if we want to allow multiple bindings at all. It seems like a weird thing to do. Maybe I should take that out for simplicity. I mean, it's like only one if statement, but it's like a parameter that people have to understand when they use this stuff, right? Okay, so handle event is there. So we have this load from data, load from file. And here's what I'm going to do. I should make sure this name is consistent with other stuff in the modules. Texture load from memory. Let's do that. Let's say memory. So we're going to deprecate this, but we're going to leave it around. We're going to say load from file, keymap, short name, file name, optional, allow duplicates. That's all. This is how we rename functions. We don't just rename them and then break everybody's code. We leave a little stub that has a finite lifetime, but it'll just output a warning to people. And then, you know, okay. Load from file. And then, so text file handler. I guess we'll pass to the handler. See, we're passing this allow duplicates around. I kind of feel like I want to remove that. Kind of feel like I want to remove it. Nobody reads warnings. Yeah, they do. You're obviously not familiar with our compiler. This is what it looks like when I compile. There are no warnings. So if there ever is a warning, it indicates something that you want to fix. This is not some C++ bullshit. Okay, so we're actually going to have three functions here. We're going to have load from file, load from memory, let's look at, so text file handler. So this is a little inconsistent because we call it start file and then start from memory. Maybe we'll homogenize these names at some point. But the point being, start from memory, handler, short name, full path. Okay, we'll do that. I'm going to delete allow duplicates. That's an executive decision. Or if we bring it back, it can be just a variable on the keymap, but like this is just stupid. I don't like it. It's not good. All right, so we load from file, we load from memory. And then load from handler. And that's going to be like that. Okay. Usually in this language, when we change from a value to a pointer, we don't have to change anything. So for most of this, it was fine. Okay. So this procedure is deprecated. Use load from file or load from memory instead. Here is the declaration of deprecated procedure. Oh, allow duplicates. Let's get rid of those. Allow duplicates. So this override is true. Oh, bro, Emacs is being passive aggressive. What the fuck is going on here? Oh, it's because of the... Dude, I need a better editor, dude. All right. Okay. Okay, this is not good. You don't want to assert on weird... I don't know what this is about. Okay, wait. This isn't what I thought it was. This is bad. This is bad. This should not be here. So what this is actually doing, I thought this was doing this. Um, it is not doing this. This is removing anything else that does the same functionality, which is not what you want. You do not want that. Like that's something you might want to do in your game. I believe that's probably why it was added. Because, you know, if you're on your game Keymap screen and you bind something to A, you want to remove anything else that had A. But that is not a thing you should do by default when things get added. No. You certainly want multiple keys that do the same thing. That is very bad. Why in second case there is no free command string? Because mappings are either a command, run a command, or call a procedure. They're not both. So there's no command string in this case. You could assert that there's no command string. Okay. Where are we at? Oh, we've got an extra comma. Okay. So we've got deprecated in our Keymap example. Let's just fix that. So we have, what's it called? Reload Keymap, load from file. Okay. Not all control paths return a value. Okay. We're going to do that. Going to do that. It's a little bit important when you're returning a value to return the value. All right. Okay. Cool. Hey, look, it still works. Great. You should return the value. That is true. You should return the value. Now what? What do we do? So, like I said, we want to load this file and have it do a bunch of sections, right? And so this load from handler so the text file handler is, this is a thing, we provide a module for this. It's just an easy way to read from a file one line at a time, trim the lines, discard comments. Like it basically gives you the next non-empty line that's trimmed, right? Which is not, I mean, that's not incredibly complicated, but it's nice to not have to, oh, and it also gives you an easy way to report errors in a standard format. You just say error with handler and whatever, and it does the file and line and all that correctly. So it's nice not to have to do that stuff, right? Okay, so The caller should pass either keymap if we are loading just one keymap, or set if we are loading a set. Oh, actually, here's the thing. Do we want to require you to use a section name every time if you're loading a set? Or can you provide a default section name, right? And that's a good question. I think for now we won't let you provide a default. You're going to have to put one in the file. But then after we finish making that work, we could be like, hey, maybe, you know, maybe we could specify one. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, you want things that users would play with, like a text file with bindings, to be as robust as possible, but you also don't necessarily want them to be quasi-robust in a way that, like, oh, we're putting this binding somewhere, but who knows where, right? So it kind of depends. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to provide a default. But anyway, first we got to get it working. If we are loading a set. If keymap, okay, assert keymap or set, assert not keymap and set. Okay. We're going to put that, we want people to know that that comment applies to that. So, so load from handler is going to have a null set. Null set. Okay. So, all right. Is this a section header? If so, respond appropriately. All right, so key name, right? Key name is a little bit of a misnomer, but so it's got to be long enough to have so this is yeah. I like to use parentheses around clauses. A lot of people would elide these. I think it's more readable to put the parentheses. Your mileage may vary. Like, I don't know, it looks better to my brain this way. That's just how it is. Okay, so is this a section header? If so, respond appropriately. So we want to parse the section header name. Now, this string is already trimmed. So what we could do is say, this string is trimmed so the last character should be a closing bracket. Error handler trying to parse a section name, but the last character on the line is not whatever. Now, keep in mind, like I said, the text handler already trims white space and comments and all that stuff. We don't see them. So this kind of code is much easier to write than it would be. Okay. So then section name cannot, and empty section name is not valid. I think error for the handler does the new line as well. Maybe not. Anyway, we'll just continue and go to the next line in these cases, because even though there's an error, you want to try to process other key bindings, because otherwise, like if no key bindings work just because you typoed one of them when you were editing a file, that's very unfriendly to people, right? Okay, but that only works because this is a very simple format that's like one line per binding, right? If you get into some complicated JSON syntax, then you can't just do this because it's a disaster, right? That's one reason to keep your file format simple. Okay, so we've got a section name. Does this section name refer to an existing keymap? Okay, are we loading a keymap set? First of all, if not, we have no idea what to do with section names. All right. If not set, error handler, a section name was provided here, but we are not loading a keymap set, so we don't know what to do with section names. You know what? That is so self-explanatory. I'm going to delete that comment that I just wrote. Okay. Does a section name refer to an existing keymap? So we're going to go for set.keymaps. We're going to say found is a keymap keymap. I was like, keymap what? It's just a keymap. For set.keymaps, if it.section name is equal to found, you know what? I don't think we expect that section name persists in memory. We don't copy it. Okay. So, you know what? I almost want to have like just a little bit of an augmentation language, kind of like you would for a proof language or something, but something that just says these facts about this. Like, this should already be long-term persistent in memory and we don't copy it. Or this is allocated with the temporary allocator or whatever, you know what I mean? Or we're returning you a value that you have memory responsibility over. Like, these would be useful things to provide info about, right? Like that would be a good project, is just let's come up with the set of what these things are. And we could just add a compiler directive that puts that information there and gives it to your metaprogram. And then you could, like, you know, in a code visualizer, instead of having your angry fruit salad color things according to just variable names or whatever, you could color them according to how they're treated. You know? I think that might be interesting. Sounds like you want some form of Rust lifetime annotations. No, that's it. I mean, a little bit. So you could think of it as very vaguely in the same category. But no, because we don't want to track lifetimes here, right? And that's what Rust is doing, is it's tracking lifetimes. We're not doing that. But what we are saying is, I'm trying to figure out how to describe the difference. Like we don't need to know the information about what the lifetime is. We're just trying to tell you as the programmer how to use it, right? Whereas the Rust lifetime system actually imposes very strict restrictions on what you can do. We don't want to impose those restrictions. We just want to give you the information, right? In a formalized way that maybe tools could understand. That's the thing. Track developer intents toward memory management. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Although it's not just memory management. I mean, the things that I just said were memory management because that's what this example was. But there's other ones like well, I don't know. I mean, some of them might be better. So sometimes you pass a pointer to something, but you know that you're not intending to modify the pointer, right? Now that's something like in C++, you would say const on it, right? Here we don't say const because you could just pass it by value if you don't want to modify it. But like, I don't know. There's some in-between cases where it seems like maybe that's not worth overcomplicating things for. I don't know. But I feel like if I started thinking about like what are these actual things, I think there's a few different categories. I don't know. We'll see. We can just keep an eye out and see when they come up. Maybe you could even pass intent for value ranges. That's true. I mean, it's a little bit dicey, right? Because if you take that stuff too seriously, you start to get into the realm of these very restrictive languages, right? If you don't take it very seriously, maybe it's not useful. I don't know. We'll see. I think it could be an experiment that we could just play with and see what happens. I mean, there's a bunch of other things that you could track. So you could say things like, we expect this function to get called like once per frame or a small number of times per frame versus we expect this function to get called very frequently. Is that a useful thing to track? Maybe, maybe not, because maybe your automated tool gives you that information in a way that's, but maybe the automated tool tells you what's actually happening, right? I mean, you could say in a function like, we expect this function to take a negligible amount of time, right? And then if you actually see that show up in a profile, you know something's wrong, as opposed to just your code's a little bit slow, right? I don't know. But then if you mark every function, that's annoying. So it just it takes, yeah. Do I like Rust as a language? I think it's made a useful contribution in terms of the lifetime tracking. Do I want to program in it? No, no, I don't. But I think it points out a direction where, more. I think future progress could be made in coming up with what are some other ways that we can do like very restrictive sublanguages, um, which help us with provability of certain things. Like broadly speaking, that's very valuable. And so Rust found this one particular thing to do. For example, I mean, it's a complicated language, but the thing, the thing that it does. Um, and I think that's a good contribution. Uh, but yeah, it doesn't mean I want to program in it. And as I've said, I have a video on YouTube from a long time ago now where I explain this. Like, people over, like, they want to think that the lifetime tracking does a lot more than it does, right? Um, for example, people will say it means you don't have memory bugs, right? But then then they turn around and also say, it encourages me to write this kind of flat code where I store everything in arrays. And I'm like, dude, as soon as you're doing that, you're introducing your own memory bugs that the compiler can't see, because you're allocating and deallocating things from arrays. So it, it's just like, people are confused about what it does. That's no surprise, because anytime you have a large community around something, there's a spectrum of quality of how well people understand what's going on, right? Um, but it's a useful contribution. It's just not what I want. The better solution is to have that information on comments. No, comments are no good because you want it to be understandable and visualizable by tools. People are confused about the real problems. They're concerned about the wrong things most of the time. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, you have to, here's the thing, programming is hard and complicated. You have to be a pretty experienced programmer before you even understand what the real problems are, right? Like, it's hard for me to compare because I learned, programming in BASIC on home computers, which is a very different environment than today. But I want to say, like, I had, you know, um, I had 6 or 7 years of programming experience before I really learned how to program, from ages like 10 to 17. Um, you could you could probably get that experience faster. But even then, like, it took a couple of years. So I had like 7 years of pre-college programming experience, and then I had, a few years in college. Somewhere around year 10, things started to gel, probably. Now you could accelerate that because, again, a kid programming in BASIC on a home computer is not the most optimal learning, I don't think, but still. And also, it's not like those were those were like me programming at home after getting home from high school and whatever. So I wouldn't actually. That's not the that's 10 years of like hobbyist experience, or 7 years hobbyist, 3 years college education. But still, um, it's a substantial amount of time. Like, and then at some point you understand things well enough where you're like, oh, these. In fact, all through college, I would say I still had no picture of the real problems. It wasn't until after I started a company, maybe 1 or 2 years into the real company, when I started encountering like actual real programming problems that were non-trivial. So it's not that easy, right? And so you would therefore expect, because people commenting about something have a wide spectrum of experience levels, you would expect the people on the lower end of the amount of experience to really not know what the real problems are. And that's fine. That's normal. The problem is just when they just get obnoxious and angry at you and try to cancel you for not agreeing with them about what the problems are. Then you have an issue. But yeah, like programming is hard, guys. What problems, for example? I mean, the really there's one main problem in programming. Okay. The main problem in programming is that your program is too complicated for you to see and understand all at once. And when there are problems, it's very hard to know that the problems exist. Uh, and then it's very hard um, to really understand the behavior of the complex system, right? That's sort of the main issue. There's all sorts of sub things that you can learn, but they're relatively simple. Like, what's a data structure that helps me do certain things? Like, you should know that. It is very useful. Knowledge of the basic data structures is required to be a competent programmer at all, right? But if you're learning that stuff, you still haven't reached the actual problem, which is system complexity, right? And so that's really what we want to be working on, is either or both of simplifying the overall system complexity, which nobody seems to care about at all, or in fact, it's anti-community to do so, because everybody wants to feel like they're part of the community by adding their bit of complexity into a system and then making sure the system cannot operate without their thing. And then they're like, I contributed, right? So that's horrible and pathological. Uh, and then the other thing that we should be doing is inventing more ways to, uh, well, there's visualizing and understanding the complexity so that our brains can handle it better. And then also, like building out of stronger materials, right? Which is where program proving comes in, or, um, the Rust lifetime stuff does do a certain amount. It doesn't do as much as people claim, but it does do a certain amount of this, which is I've proved something about my program, therefore I don't have to think about whether that occurs, which allows me to think about other things, right? That's the fundamental problem in programming. And if people would stop doing diddly shit marketing of things that add to complexity while claiming to solve easy problems and then not even doing that, we would be a lot better off, right? Like if people would just focus on the actual problem, we would be a lot better off. Certainly programming just has to reach a level of complexity at some point where one brain can't really grok the whole thing. Sure. But then you have multiple people, right? And then so let's say you have 3 programmers on a project because it's too big for one person to understand. how much of the project can each of those three people understand, and how confused are they? That's a dial that you could turn up or down, right? So the number of people is kind of immaterial in some sense, except that, of course, costs, like if you have let's say you have 2 times as much code complexity as one person could understand. You need more than 2 people to do that, because there's lack of communication, right? There's uncertainty, there's redundancy, all these things. Like, it's well known that the efficiency of a team scales, or the amount of work that a team is able to do scales sublinearly with the size of the team, right? Sometimes dramatically sublinearly, depending on who you hire and how things are done. So like, it's the same thing, but in reverse, right? So like, let's say the cost of your algorithm is O of n squared, right? And there's no way to get that algorithm down. Then you would be like, oh, if I can reduce the number of inputs to my O of n squared algorithm, that's good, because it'll reduce the runtime by a lot. This is the same thing. If you can reduce system complexity by a little bit, it's really good, because it'll reduce costs immensely, right? Because so I just said the inverse of it when I said the productivity is sublinear with team size. But you can invert that and say team size is superlinear with productivity, right? And so if you can reduce complexity, it increases productivity for the same team size, or you get reduced team size at the same productivity, right? Which dramatically reduces costs. Like, all this is really important, and almost nobody seems to care. It's crazy. It's crazy. The square root of the team does half the work. You think someone figured it out? Yeah, I think that's approximately true. It certainly seems to be true in my, I think for very small team sizes, if you're very good at hiring somehow, which is hard today, let me tell you, but if you are, you can make that happen. But you can do better than that. But once your team goes beyond, I want to say around 20 people, yeah, you're just going to hit that law. And if you could get to 20 even, that's amazing. In regards to data structures, do you recommend someone learn a bunch of them and then go out and use them? Not really. I mean, computer science schools do that sometimes. I always learn much better if I'm trying to do something very specific. And then I'm like, okay, what data structure do people use for this? Oh, I don't know what that is. Let me go learn about it so I can do this thing. And then if you do that enough times in different areas, you'll learn different data structures. Have I ever considered making an educational course? I am pretty busy these days. I don't have time to do something like that. But Casey is doing his version of that, and you can go watch that on his Substack. His is much more about low-level programming than mine would be, though, because I don't care as much about low-level programming as he does, I think. The crypto guys are becoming obsessed with code complexity because financial losses due to hacks are becoming unbearable as they try to build more stuff. Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. Like, if you actually really have to bear the cost of complexity, you're going to care about it more, clearly. Have I ever heard of a Bloom filter? It's an interesting data structure. I've heard of it, but the place I heard of it was looking on Hacker News, which makes me think it's not actually good. Okay. Let's get back to doing some programming. I did this wrong. It's not if it's equal to found, if it's equal to section name. Duh. Found equals it break. All right, so if we didn't find one, we're going to say error handler section whatever does not exist, comma, section name, continue. All right, so if we get here, we're going to say keymap equals found. All right. So we're assigning to, so keymap was that parameter that people could pass in, right? All right. So now if we get down here, this is still key names and stuff. Parsing a command. Add mapping. All right. So this is where we add the mapping to the keymap. And I'm going to say if keymap actually, you know what? Let's just, this is a failure case. I like doing cascading failure cases rather than a billion nestings because nestings are annoying. If there's no keymap, error handler, okay, right. We asserted at the beginning that we either have a keymap or a set. So if we don't have a keymap, we do have a set. So we will say that we have keymap or a set. Since we have no keymap, the caller is calling us with a set. We encountered a key binding here without any declaration of what section it goes in. Ignored. You could imagine that error being spammed 1,000 times down the screen, whatever. Okay, so that's kind of the functionality that we want. Okay, so the core example still builds. So I don't think our load functions call us yet, right? So we're going to go load from data, load from file. Okay, so load from file. Right, so we're going to do this, and then we're going to say, we're going to call load from handler with different arguments. We're going to say load from handler set null handler. How easy. It's Chelsea Handler. Did you guys know what a good programmer Chelsea Handler was? All right. So now, same here. It's a little weird to have these different entry points with the same like 5-line thing, whatever, but so this is obviously, nobody's calling this right now. This is going to error because these parameter names are not right. Load from memory. We're being consistent with names. We'll call this memory. So this is just like, you know, if you have a packaged file system or something that you grabbed, 'cause this is very common in development. For example, we might have things as a million billion loose files, right? But then we pack them together for better efficiency and you load like a package. That's why we have these two entry points, because you might just mmap the package or something. That said, maybe that's going out of style again. I don't know. But for now, this is what we're doing. Memory. All right. Okay. Probably messed something up. All right, so let's rename this example. We're going to call this single keymap, right? And then we're going to copy to keymap set. All right. That's pretty good. Have you ever tried the Real Force keyboards? I tried one. I didn't like it at all. I got like a Real Force 87U is what I'm remembering, and meh. Meh. I did not delete allow duplicate. Ah, good point. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So I feel like I want to go outside in the sun soon. The waning sun. But this is good progress. Before we work on this example, because I want to do a little bit of the example and at least load the file. I want to test and make sure that our section name loading works, because it probably doesn't. But before we do that, let's just run all our tests, because dude, Windows drive letters is the stupidest shit. Like, why can't we get rid of that? So probably one of these tests will fail somewhere. Yeah, we got to fail already. Because, when you load a module, we do dead code elimination. So we're not actually compiling the bodies of procedures that example didn't call, right? This is actually, I think, our tests. Yeah. Okay. This is just hard-coded to run that test. I thought that this was a possibility, but then I was like, no, it's not doing that. Yes, it is. Okay, so this was called single keymap and keymap set. So we want both of these in here. Now that wasn't the only failure, though. So, okay, this is just Emacs leaves turds in the folder, and I have too much self-respect to put code in to ignore Emacs turds, so I just have to delete them all the time. Like, so because we edited bucket array, and like Emacs sometimes, but not that often, decides to make turd files, and I don't know what its problem is. So it looks like we got no actual fails there. That's the official technical name for those, is turd files, aren't they? That's what I learned. After all the laptops I tried, is there still no single one I'm happy to... No, laptops I hate, and they make me miserable now. I haven't used a laptop that I actually enjoyed since like the mid 2010s, probably. Like it's been almost 10 years. But they just keep getting worse and worse. Okay, here we go. Start from memory, line 51. Yeah, so this is just pointer to handler. What test was that in? Just the module tests. All right, let's run it again. Run it back. Lenovo Legion laptop is okay. You tried the framework laptop 16 with the GPU. It's great. I disagree because that is exactly my current laptop and it has all kinds of fucking problems that drive me nuts. Okay, we got another one. I made the opposite problem on each one. Let's just do this one directly. See? Okay. Undeclared identifier set. Up. Keymap. Short name. Let's make these parameters named consistently. Short name, file name. Let's call this full path. We provide the full path for error messages and stuff. All right. Dude. Like, how do I have the same code? I guess what I copied it from had inconsistent naming. All right, so 128 file data. Load from memory. Dude, I didn't put the memory. Dude, I keep doing this. All right. So now we're going to run all the tests again just to make sure, but they should pass. Like, I've just heard so many people say, my laptop is great. And then I try it and it's like, ugh. Wait, what? What is going on here? Is this like a weird Heisenbug? What is happening right now? This has nothing to do with anything we were working on. And I've never seen that before. I mean, I did have weird file open problems a long time ago with like Windows Defender would open something and then I couldn't open it while it had it open. Yeah, okay. Maybe it's that. Dude, I don't know. See, here's the thing. Maybe that's a weird bug in the compiler. I don't think so because the file name was correct and it's very hard for us to like fail to issue a call. So like maybe that was something like that. And it's just like computers be like this now, you know? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that comes up. What are the numbers in square brackets? That's which core or which thread, really. is running that test. So we launch it on like 32 threads or something. We just got this notation from Visual Studio or whatever, which does the same thing. Okay, so let's go into our. Oh, let's see if Sokoban's going to at least warn, right? Oh yeah, I renamed that. Right? Okay, so now we've got our deprecateds. Load from file. I don't know this keymap with local override. What is this? Yeah, okay. All right. Keymaps is not a member keymap. Yeah, same thing. Change log renamed keymap. We just want to tell people, because most people probably aren't iterating over the internal members like this, but if they do, when we do the next compiler release, we want to say, oh, if you get this problem, just change the name. All right. Control prompts. Oh, it's not called. Oh, I said bindings. It's mappings. Mappings. Classic Emacs. You get a problem, you fix it, you get another one, so you do a search and replace, and the other one was the only one. Okay, we got another in menu. I don't know why we have some. This is part of what I'm trying to do is like, yeah, load from file. This really should be. So here we're saving out the keymap file. We probably should provide that in the module, but we're not going to worry about that yet. Okay. Add mapping. Oh yeah, because it's got the override. I'm looking at the wrong line. What am I doing? I'm looking at the wrong... Oh, because I searched for it. We really did a lot of use of this variable name. It's like most of what I'm doing right now is just changing this. Okay, so we compile now. We've still got some use of deprecated procedure. Player control. I don't know why there's a separate keyboard and gamepad, except that maybe it's because he's saving out the bindings, but I don't think that necessitates multiple files. We're going to have to look at that separately. I'm going to put that... I thought I closed all the module files. All right. Ask about why gamepad versus keyboard file. Okay. All right, so we got one more. Why are we deleting? I see. Yeah, this is not, we're going to have to figure out how to. Yeah. It just, this can't live here, right? Because this is like in the game files. So that would have to go somewhere. But that's fine. That's the thing you do when you get ready to ship, I guess. So let's make sure this runs. Ah! I got roasted from off the screen. Okay. This file, okay, this is actually busted because... Whoa. Broken because you can just knock the dragon off the screen. Wait a bit. So that's a level where we hadn't decided if we're going to keep it anyway yet. Okay. Anyway, so the game's running. Menu works. Hold on. What's my... Here we go. iProf keymap. This is a separate keymap file right now. It will be a section later. You know, this is what I'm talking about. You go into a mode and it's taking over the arrow keys, right? The arrow keys are no longer affecting the player, but this is rebindable and all that. So that's great. So that's working, and we can take the W there, and we got to do 2 check-ins. Module modifications, working toward keymap set functionality. Okay, whatever. I hope I don't have to update. So the problem is somebody who's in European time zone made a check-in. I probably do. This check-in probably isn't going to work. Oh, it worked. So someone in European time zone made a check-in, and there's like a missing shader file, and like the game doesn't run if I have to update it until tomorrow probably. Was this keymap set functionality present in the witness? No. I don't remember, actually. I don't remember what we did. Why do we have so many red and green distinctions in games? What do you mean by distinction? I mean, dudes who are colorblind just have to learn to deal with it, right? I mean, obviously you can, like, it's considered good practice in game design to not introduce problems for colorblind people if you don't have to, right? Like, you generally, if you have objects that you need to tell the difference between, you don't have the difference just be color, but you have it be textural or shape in some way, etc., right? That's all standard, really. So, I mean, developers do this, but at the same time, it just looks different if you're colorblind, right? And it's hard to tune for that. So, you know. Green enemy on red background. I mean, again, like, you can't, it's already just so hard to make a game that if you start putting all these other constraints on being able to make the game, it becomes too hard. Like, that's the simple truth. The simple truth right now is it's so hard to make a game that anything you play, they probably barely managed to make it already. That's really what it is. What do people with red-green colorblindness do at Christmas? How do they know what's red and what's green at Christmas? Sounds like having colorblind mode is what he's proposing. Yeah, but like, if you want a colorblind mode, that should, for the most part, just be in your operating system, right? Like, or in your display driver. League remaps red, green to blue, orange. Yeah, I mean, all I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's super hard to do. What I am saying is that if you're asking why 100% of games don't add a bunch of colorblind options, it's because the game was about to explode at any minute already anyway. That's why. And like adding more things is just harder. It always is. That's the reason. Now, that just means that developers have to prioritize what they want to do relative to other things. And so they can, of course, make those choices. Tried to make a witness puzzle only colorblind people could solve. Any chance I could elaborate on what that looked like? Not really, because it never got far enough along. What I was trying to do, there's a certain part of the game where you're trying to notice certain patterns, right? And I was trying to make one of those patterns in a way that you just wouldn't even, like if you have 3-color vision or 4-color vision, which is a little more common among women than men, but very rare anyway, that you wouldn't be able to see the thing. But the problem was, so we ran some tests where we put up a web page and we were like, I forget exactly what it was, but it was like, turn this slider until these things look the same and whatever. And we just got totally different results, even from people with the same kind of color blindness or whatever. Like, I just wasn't able. I mean, maybe it's possible it was low quality internet survey data or whatever, right? But like, just looking at the data that came in, I was like, I have no idea what to do with this. So I just couldn't design the puzzle. Okay. We're 2 hours into the stream. I'm pretty close to wanting to be done for now. We could pick up later tonight. But before we do that, let's just go to our example. What was it called? Keymap. It was here. I just want to make sure we can load with the section headers, right? Keymap. Examples. Keymaps. Okay, whatever. So we're going to modify this. The set is keymap set. Okay. Oh boy. Yeah, okay, so we're going to say K is add keymap, the set, I don't know, main. The rain in Maine goes gently to the plain. Here's a question. The way that I've factored all this, when you add these procedures, you have to add them separately for any keymap where you want them to be recognized. But I think that's actually maybe the right choice. You could alternatively, instead of registering the binding of the name to the function, instead of registering that in the actual individual key map, you could register it in the set so that any key map could use that name, but I don't think that matches use cases. Okay, so we're going to get rid of all this stuff because we want our demo to be a little different. Anyway. So we're going to change a bunch of this stuff just to have a more interesting demo. But okay, here we go. Load from file. We're just going to say the set. Oh, you know what? We should. This is called. Let's rename this. This is going to be called. It's going to be the same as the. No, don't rename those. All right, and then here we're going to copy this. This is called Keymap set. Same name as the source file. Okay, so this is all right. Load from file. Okay, so we do that. We want to talk about the examples. Okay, anyway, so we load this from the file and then we do things. So first let's make sure that that compiles. Okay, Keymap handle event. Oh, it's just handle event. I want to pass a pointer. Okay, great. Now, we want to go to the file. Actually, if we do this right now, and we compile and run this example, we should get the error that we should get a bunch of errors spew actually that we didn't declare a section. Yeah, we encountered a key binding here without any declaration of what section it goes in. So whether we want to be more or less verbose about that. So if I go to the Keymap, I could say Cowabunga here, and now it should complain first that section doesn't exist, and then we'll get a bunch of the same spam, right? Oh, expected a space. Oh, we didn't. Oh, it doesn't work. We didn't parse that correctly. Oh, if no RHS expected a space. Oh, okay. This is all. This is all to. I sometimes I edit code without reading it. So all this, we just want. We want to do this on the single line. This break by spaces was like, because the standard format is binding and then function, right? Or, you know, key and then function. All right. So section cowabunga does not exist. Again, we could maybe add some if statements to be less verbose about it. Like if the section does not exist, maybe you don't want to report this error. Maybe if you reported this error once, that's enough. Although you do want to probably output something for every binding you rejected. I don't know. Okay. So maybe we do want that. Okay, but main, we do have a section called main, right? Okay. So now we're just saying we don't know these commands, which is true because I commented out those commands, right? So let's do that. We're going to get rid of all these. We're going to put back some other things later because we're going to have little submodes. All right, there we go. So this is good. We're going to have two modes, and because someone was just complaining about red-green color blindness, we're going to have red mode and green mode. All right. Spacebar. So we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. Say we are in red mode. Okay. You literally need different key code mappings for DualSense on Android 11, 12, 13. What? That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. Okay. So let's just make this work. And then later tonight, maybe I'll come back. We'll do another stream where we document and we just make this example better. But I wanted to, you know, like, look, in 2 hours, there we go. In 2 hours, we did this and it was easy. And we spent half the time talking about Europe and whatever. And Rust. People always want us to talk about Rust. I don't know what it is. Okay. All these are the things that we deleted the bindings for. So we'll get rid of those. All right. So we're going to go add proc to red. And then we're going to add to green Okay, so this is enter pressed green, and those functions don't exist, but also I'm going to do this. Okay. Yeah. We need, I mean, these will actually be enter red mode, enter green mode, enter neutral mode. But like I said, I don't want to do that right now. We'll do it later. Say we are in red mode. Say we are in green mode. I don't know what we're going to do with this. Whatever. You know, we're just doing random things. All right. And we'll figure out what to do here as well. We just want the bindings to exist right now. Okay. We got no errors. It all works. Let's actually say oh, you know what? We're not toggling the modes on and off and all that. Let's do that later. Like I said, I want to go take a break, but this is good. So the way that this will work in the next stream that we do is just we have these different key maps now. The thing is, they're always enabled currently, right? And so what we're going to want to do is enable or disable them you know, depending on what mode we're in. I'm deleting those comments because those are beginner comments that are in the other example. I don't know. We might keep the square. It's kind of a lot of code, so we might just delete it. It might just be about background colors, right? All right. Gree mode. That's not going to pass certification. All right. We're taking the W on that. And that may be the stream. Yeah, I'm going to do, we'll probably do another stream, I don't know, later. Like later on at some point. Thanks, everybody. See you later. See you later. Watch some other programmers. Maybe I should have done this on Twitter, but it's annoying to switch back and forth. So you got it on Twitch today. All right. See ya.